On Sunday, October the 14th, 2018, the Bavarian voters elected a new Landtag or state legislature for the next 5 years. As expected, the long-time ruling Christian Social Union, which is the Bavarian section of the German Christian Democrats, suffered severe losses. So did the Social Democrats, which of course then means more troubles for the already embattled German Federal Chancellor or Prime Minister Mrs. Angela Merkel, who after 6 months of painstaking negotiations was able to form a majority coalition government, the so-called Grand Coalition of Christian Democrats, including the Christian Social Union and Social Democrats. However, there have been rifts inside the coalition, ironically between Federal Chancellor Merkel's main branch of the Christian Democrats and the more socially conservative Christian Social Union, especially its leader, Mr. Horst Seehofer, who is, if I remember correctly, the German Interior Minister over the refugee policy. More specifically, Minister Seehofer would like those people whose refugee claims have been rejected by the German immigration authorities to be deported more rapidly, more quickly from Germany than Federal Chancellor Merkel. And there have been speculations that Federal Chancellor Merkel might not serve as the German government's leader until the next Bundestag or German federal parliamentary elections, which are scheduled for September 2021. But then the question is, in case she resigns before the end of this parliamentary term, who will replace her? Or will her resignation possibly lead to early federal parliamentary elections, which in Germany are more difficult to hold than in typical parliamentary democracies? They require the federal chancellor to propose or ask for a vote of confidence from the Bundestag. Then the Bundestag must vote against this proposal, and for the following 3 weeks the Bundestag must fail to elect a new federal chancellor with an absolute majority of its members. And so far, 3 times during the German Federal Republic's history, this maneuver has succeeded in producing early elections. In 1972, 1983, and most recently in 2005. Anyway, to put a long story short, these elections also spell trouble for Federal Chancellor Merkel's fragile coalition, because in Germany, the federal parliament's upper house, Bundesrat, is not elected either by the people or by the state legislatures, but instead it is appointed by the 16 federal states' governments, and each state has, depending on its population, either 3, 4, 5, or 6 votes or delegates in the Bundestag, and the delegates must agree among themselves whether to favor or oppose a legislative proposal. If they are divided in their votes, then they must abstain, which in effect means voting against the proposal. Despite their major losses in these elections, the Christian Social Union managed to remain as the clearly largest party. However, it lost 10.5% of its vote, probably the party list or proportional vote, and its overall percentage of that vote slid to 37.2%. It also lost 16 seats and only retained 85. The current Bavarian Landtag has 205 members. Mr. Markus Söder is the Christian Social Union's leader in Bavaria, and it remains to be seen if he is able to persuade at least one of the opposition parties to govern Bavaria with him, because, of course, it would be very difficult for the opposition parties, which did get 120 seats, to form a coalition government among themselves. One of the big winners of these state legislative elections were the Greens. They doubled their share of the vote to 17.5% and received 38 seats, a gain of 20. The free voters, who are ideologically diverse, ranging from conservative to socially liberal ones, received a slighter gain, 2.6%, pulling their share of the vote up to 11.6%. They accordingly received 27 seats, a gain of 8. The populist right-wing and Eurosceptic, also largely anti-immigration and strongly anti-Islam Alternative for Germany, received 10.2% of the vote. It did not yet exist or did not contest, the previous Bavarian state elections in 2013. Its share of the vote gave it 22 seats. Humiliatingly, the Social Democrats lost 10.9% of their share of the vote, dropping to just 9.7% of the vote and to 22 seats. The Freedom Democrats managed to just pass the 5% vote threshold required for assured representation in the Landtag. This gave them 5.1% of the vote and 11 seats. So it will be difficult to form a new coalition government. The so-called Grand Coalition technically, theoretically, would have a majority with 107 seats. However, since the Social Democrats' representation was halved, and even the Christian Democrats or Christian Socials lost about 1/6 of their seats, this would seem like an unfair way of rewarding them with another mandate, or with a mandate together. Theoretically, the Christian Social Union could form a coalition government with the Greens and possibly with the Free Voters. This would be a strong majority government, having 160 seats. However, it remains to be seen whether it actually will, or 150 seats, whether, especially given the Free Voters' ideological diversity, whether it will work. Probably the other parliamentary parties will not want to work with the Alternative for Germany. Theoretically, there could even be a fourth-party coalition of the Christian Social Union, Greens, Free Voters, and Free Democrats. This would be an even stronger majority government with 161 seats. Or there could be a three-party coalition of the Christian Social Union, Social Democrats, and Free Democrats, which would have 138 seats. But it remains to be seen who the new Ministerpräsident or State Premier will be, and what the new government will be like. It is very likely that, or notably likely, that the new Bavarian state government will be classified as neutral, because it will contain one governing party, the Christian Social Union, and likely one opposition party, given the Social Democrats' huge election losses. So then it would be classified as a neutral state delegation in the Bundestag.